Alright, timestamp. It's January 16th, 2025. About 8:30 p.m., something like that. Getting ready for bed here in a minute, just because we're on that, like, getting up at 3 a.m., 5 a.m. kind of schedule. Health-wise, as I cough, tapering off the scars, I'm starting to feel a little better. Still reeling from yesterday, and the circus that is my family. You can almost see my shirt. Wearing one of my favorite, like, subtle nerd shirts. If you get it, if you know, you know, you know. Save the clock tower. So I left off explaining what was going on with my dad. So we left my dad's house. We were kind of debriefing with the DCF people on the street by the vehicles, and my dad stood in the driveway looking incredibly lost, holding the one dog in his arm, kind of cradled. It was like some kind of bizarre Paris Hilton tribute. It was rather strange. My dad's gone. I mean, the look in his eyes was just... The best word I can think to describe the look in his eyes was vacant. And it was real hard seeing him that way. I mean, I wasn't... It's going to sound awful. I wasn't real impressed when I saw him in May, when we were burying my cat. I was a little distracted, but I remember... I remember him not necessarily engaging appropriately, or, he said, I'm sorry about your cat. He knew her. He had tried to steal her a couple times, I think. He'd come over and he's like, this is years ago, before a lot of this stuff became more evident. And she had a reputation. She was an outdoor cat for the first 8 or 9 years. Most of the cats in the neighborhood, because a lot of people, there are still, like, the reproducing of generations, and every neighborhood has one. But Lorgia was kind of, it was a progenitor, is that the word? Just about every cat in the neighborhood is related to her in some way. She was a bit of a harlot. It's true. Actually, one of the cats that we currently have, Kaiser, he's 14. He's the one that's pretty much attached to Tiny and Pixie. He is one of her children, like one of her sons from, like, her second or third litter, I think, way back when. But there's a lot of other. She was a tortoiseshell tabby, and there's a lot of other tortoiseshell tabbies in the neighborhood. She was grandma, great grandma, great. I don't even want to know how many greats, because you're both pretty. But he did offer his condolences when we were doing that. And then he went off into the yard on his own tangent of thought, and Tiny was following, talking to, keeping him really busy, keeping an eye on him. Because again, Tiny thought that I was insane for doing what I was doing. But I wanted to make sure that my cat was on, like, homestead. It may sound weird, but she, after 17 years, even if you've had a lot of animals in your life, and we have, there's always that one, two, or, three or four if you've had dozens, which we have. Cats, dogs, we've had dozens over the years. And they're all special. I'm not saying they're not. But there's always, a few that are more special than the others. We had a Boxer Shepherd mix who, his name was Moon, and he was special. One of the best dogs I've ever owned. I had an orange cat named Merlin who, he made it to about, I think, 10. And, I'd give anything to have him back. Those guys. He was kind of awesome. But, 17 years. And when she was an outdoor cat, she would follow me to the corner store, follow me home. She would wait outside the store until I was done and then escort me home. But yeah, the squirrels and the birds in the neighborhood, whatnot, you could tell where she was based on the chaos coming from the treetops. They announced when she was near. Other cats, they might even not care, but if you heard, a bunch of squirrels and birds going, completely berserk in the yard to your left, Lorge is in the yard there. She had a reputation. It was funny. But yeah, no, my dad, her reputation was legendary. So there were a few times my dad would come over and give her scritches and be like, "You're going to get in the truck with me, aren't you?" Yeah, because I could use you. I could use you on my property. Yeah, come on, get in the car, That did not happen. I would not allow it. And I don't think she would have gone along with it anyway, because, we were pretty tight. But, yeah, so so we wrapped up at my parents' house with my dad there, and we decided to go to the rehab center where Mom was, where we were hoping they were supposed to be transporting her the afternoon before, so we were hoping, following day she'd be there and settled in. So we got there and checked in, learned the procedures, crevice search, all the fun stuff. I'm kidding about the crevice search, it's not Friday night yet. So, making the vanilla coffee with the Starbucks breakfast blend medium roast, 3 scoops, 1 scoop. I found a new favorite blend, so good. Made a pot earlier, and I had help killing it off. I did get a cup out of it, so. But now I've started a pot all by myself, and I'm not sure that anybody else is awake. Mine, all mine. It's a very quiet coffee maker. And, you can barely tell that I'm doing anything at all, really. It sounds like maybe I might be a little hungry or something. It's wrapping up. So anyway, went to see my mom. Got in the room. Got to talking. And we mentioned that we had just come from the house and a couple of deputies and DCF, and I could see there was a bit of anger in her eyes. And it was like, okay, we're doing what you told us to do again, and I can tell you're pissed. We're trying to get Dad help. What gives? And she's like, well, if he gets arrested, the money stops. Because, they'll take away his compensation. And it's like, okay, that's not how any of this works. And why are you worried about the money? Why aren't you worried about Dad's well-being and health? And I was just like, you know what, I'm just not having it. I said, look, he's in rough shape. Your house is terrifying. And steps need to be taken. I can tell you're not happy with those steps being taken, even though you've been encouraging us to take those steps. Again, we're doing the same game that we did before. I said, he's I looked through the paperwork that was on the dining room table, and there were stacks. I mean, stacks of just old bills, paperwork, and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not finding any of the useful bills or anything to get stuff paid. And I know that she had like a pack of checks. I'm like, I know you got checks, but I don't know. I would help you manage this. And I've got forms from DCF that would enable me to do that if you're willing. And she was like, no one's touching my finances. I will handle it. And it's like, okay, well, then handle it. Then do it. And she's like, well, I don't have anything useful. And Pix grabbed the green bag and we started looking through it again real quick. And she has all the bills. She has them all, plus a stack of checks. And we're like, everything you need's right here. She's like, well, I just got that. I'm like, you've had this a week. You're telling me you had it a week? You've had the chance to look through it? And she's like, I did look through it, and I didn't notice anything useful. And it's like, we're looking through it, and it's like, there's nothing but useful. Everything you need is right here. She's like, well, I haven't had a chance to look at it. And it's like, okay, the story keeps changing. First, you didn't have checks, and we found you checks. They were in there the whole time. You said you looked through it the day before, and they weren't there. They're here. Now you're saying you just got it. You've had this entire bag for a week. So, are you unable to handle this? And she's like, I'm fine. I can handle it all. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're doing a bang up job. And I think Pix told her, look, based on the condition of the house, DCF is planning on sending somebody over. And Dad signed off on it. Whether he's really coherent, cognizant of what he signed off or not, DCF is planning on bringing someone over, or possibly a team from the CDC or WHO, can't say, to try and clean up your place because damn. And she went off about, I don't want total strangers touching my precious things and going through my things. And it's like, well, okay, your home is a health hazard. You haven't been taking care of it, clearly. Dad doesn't even know what day of the week it is, and therefore, in that respect, it's kind of useless. They're sending someone. I mean, if you say no, then it stops there. And she's like, absolutely not. It's like, okay, well, you're not going home, because they're not going to release you to a home that's in that condition with bed bugs and whatnot. Won't happen. Won't happen. She's like, well, I'll figure it out. It's like, you've had a week to figure out your bills, and it's been here the whole time. You're saying you don't have it, and they're 5 feet away from you, in your possession. So bear in mind, a little bit of time has passed, not a huge amount. I think I was calling him Dr. Baker. My dad's doctor, his primary, calls me. And he starts asking me questions. He's like, okay, I've been talking with DCF and whatnot. We need to get your father in here to get him reassessed because obviously, he hasn't been evaluated correctly. I'm looking right at my mom and I said, well, that's because people weren't being honest with you about his symptoms. If you understand what I'm saying. I said, actually, I'm here with my mom right now. And Bless him, he's catching on. Because he said, I think I understand exactly what you're telling me. It's like, good job, Doc. And he's like, actually, can I speak with your mother? I said, no problem, happy to. So I took my headset off and I put it on her. And he's, is she, are you okay? I want to get your husband in here. She starts ranting to him. To me, this is hilarious. She starts ranting to him about, they're going to send people to clean my house and touch my things. Do you think that's fair? I don't think that's fair. I worked hard for those things. These people are going to touch my things and they have no business being there. Bear in mind, this is something DCF arranged. And she's talking to my dad's primary in geriatrics, whatnot. Xunite X. She's got these nipples. Dr. Baker has nothing to do with any of that. Nothing to do with any of that. And I can hear his reaction in the background. It's kind of like, because the headset, there's a little bit of, I hear in color, so I can usually hear, both sides. And he's just like, ma'am, I can't speak to whether or not that's fair. I have no control over that. That's not what I'm calling for. It's not what I do. She just, dog with a bone. And she hands the headset back to me. He's like, can I talk to your son again? So I talked to him, and he's like, look, I would like to get your father in here. I said, I would like that, because, and this is no fault to you, but just to draw a parallel, you diagnosed him with a cold when I know he's got double pneumonia. I said, he's been hallucinating for 8 years. And I know that you were told by at least a couple of people, and I'm looking right at my mom, several times when asked, you were told that he hasn't hallucinated. And that was a lie. That was a big, fat, hairy lie. And it's going to throw off your diagnosis. And he's like, yeah, that definitely would throw off my diagnosis, because that's a pretty serious symptom. I'm like, I know, it's a mid-stage symptom of dementia. And he's like, yes, it is. I'm like, I've done my homework. My dad doesn't have mild cognitive disorder ? He's like, yeah, that's probably inaccurate. It's probably a weak diagnosis based on that new information. I'm like, so what do we do? And he's like, I'm going to try and set up to get him a full neurological workup, because we need to figure out what's going on and handle the situation, because the reports that I'm getting are a little concerning. He's like, I understand there's multiple guns. I said, I saw at least 10, 15, somewhere there. Based on what my dad has said, I think he has over 30. I said, I don't have a problem with gun ownership, but I do have a problem with gun ownership if you've got, mid-stage dementia and you're having hallucinations. I think it's a horrible combination of things. And he's like, yeah, I don't think your dad needs guns. I think that's, with his paranoid delusions and whatnot, that's not a good combination. Like, okay, good, we're on the same page, cool. He's like, let me see what I can figure out, and I'll call you, and we just need to get him here. I'm like, okay. My mom is seething. And I'm seething a little bit too, still am. Because it just seems like it's all about the money. We're just trying to hide dad's condition so that we can get the monthly check or something. That's not okay. My dad should have been getting help years ago on this, and it's just been hidden. So that happened. Not Joe. Trying to think how things happen next. It was a really crazy day. Chuck came by, thinking about phone calls that I got later on that night. Chuck came, I'm like trying to remember everything I want to tell you about, because it was a long day. Chuck came by, and he had my mom's purse. So apparently he did manage to find the purse. My dad had insisted when we were there, oh, your mother has her purse. I'm like, she didn't the day before yesterday. No. Chuck got it from me like a week ago. I'm like, okay, Chuck dropped off the green bag with stuff, but not your purse. The purse was missing. Oh. No, that was a while ago. That was days ago. I'm like, if it was any time, because of when I talked to Chuck last, I'm like, if it was any time, it was yesterday that he picked it up. No, it was days ago. I'm like, it was day ago if he actually has it. Because if not, I talked to Chuck the day before that, and he didn't have it. He was trying to find it. I know, because I talked to him. I'm like, okay, whatever. My dad trying to remember time frames is just, it's done. It's out the window. So Chuck comes by, has the purse, which has in it her cell phone and her wallet. And I'm like, cool, now you absolutely have everything that you need to take care of business. And Chuck's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, she was saying she didn't have checks or her bills to be able to pay. And he's like, yeah, I've been looking everywhere. I'm like, dude, you already got it. You nailed it first time out. It's all in that green bag, and it has been. And he's like, oh, well, great, good, okay. I'm like, she hasn't done anything. And Chuck's like, oh, Sandy, you gotta get on it. So we're all in the room, and nurse comes in to check on my mom, and my mom, kind of pulls the nurse down and whispers in her ear. And the nurse basically says, we'll be right back. I need to take her out of the room for a second. It's like, okay. Oh, this is good stuff. Another nurse comes in and is like looking down the hall, looking in the room, looking down the hall, looking in the room. She comes in, and I guess she's my mom's normal nurse or whatnot. And she's like, am I in trouble? And we're like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, they're wheeling your mom into the director's office, and I'm trying to figure out, did I offend her? Did I piss her off? Did I piss somebody off? Because normally people don't go there unless they're making a complaint. Pix and I look at each other, we're like, oh boy, here we go. This is gonna be good. So the director of nursing wheels her back in, and we're like, no, I think you're fine. I don't know what's going on. You seem delightful. I have no idea what's going on. The director of nursing wheels my mom back in like 2 minutes later, and is like, Sandra's going to have a nap now, so I'm going to have to ask you all to leave. My mom complained about us and had us bounced from the rehab center. Yup. Okay. So we get out in the parking lot, talking to Chuck, because, we all got bounced. And we told Chuck about the day. And, I said about the guns on the mattress. And he's like, yeah, I mean, he's always got guns lying around. There's guns in, every safe, every room. And I'm like, I know my dad's got at least 30 guns. And he kind of snorts. He's like, your dad's got over 80 guns. He's got way more than 30. He's got 80, maybe 90. I thought Pixie was going to faint. It's like, he's got 80. Wait, what? He's like, oh, yeah. I mean, he claims to be a collector, and I keep urging him to sell some of them and whatnot, but, you know your parents, they're hoarders, and he's not really collecting. It's like, he has over 8, and I know, me personally, not Chuck, my dad in the past has bragged about, I've got over 1,000 rounds of ammunition. I'm ready for it. I'm not sure what it is. As far as I know, my dad He might have seen Red Dawn once when it came out, in the mid 80s, but I don't think he was like a fan of it. I've never once seen my dad go, Wolverines, or anything like that, so I don't know. Um, yeah, so 80, maybe 90 guns, 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Mid-stage dementia, hallucinating for 8 years. I know I've said it 100 times at this point, but what could go wrong? So that happened. Darla called me on our way home, and she's kind of debriefing, making sure that she understood exactly what was going on, verifying stuff. And I have to call Darla back tomorrow morning so I can play the voicemail. I could make this up, but I don't have to. So while I was on the phone with Darla, my dad called my phone on his phone, because it can't receive calls, but apparently he can call out. And he left a voicemail on my phone that was, I'm going to try and replicate at least the words. Mark, on my bed I had like 6 guns, and now I only have 4. So I know you were in the room. I'm not sure what you did. Can you give me a call back? Bear in mind, when I found the guns, the sheriff, the deputy, was in the doorway watching me. I never even picked up a gun. I didn't even touch them. I just noted that they were there, and I put the towel back. This is why we don't go over there. I mean, he absolutely thinks that Kelly took his license away, but now, and this isn't anything new, this is a normal day. I'm sure the belief is that I took a couple of his handguns. That's what's in his head. But I need to let Darla hear that voicemail, because welcome to the story you've come in midway through. On a completely different note, I just watched the trailer for Daredevil Born Again. If you know me, we ran a hobby shop. I kind of like comic books. My number one favorite character of all time is Nightcrawler. I'm a big X-Men fan. But I also have deep love for Daredevil, Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, Beast. Those few characters that are like Kitty Pryde. I love Kitty Pryde. Alright, when Netflix first started doing Daredevil, when they were talking about it, Charlie Cox was never on my radar. He wasn't. When I heard they cast him, I was like, oh, the guy from Stardust. Okay. Yeah, he should be pretty good. And if you haven't seen Stardust, no spoilers, but 2 things. One, there's a very, very, very early on Daredevil versus Superman fight in that. You don't want to miss it. Actually, anyway. And you will, in a loving way, never look at De Niro the same way. Possibly my favorite character I've ever seen him play. I think the musical piece is Bolero. I can't hear it now without picturing something else in my head, and it makes me smile every damn time. And again, if you know, you know. But when I heard they were planning on doing Daredevil, my first thought, because I didn't know, they were doing, Matt Murdock at like age 20 or at age 40. my first thought was Jeffrey Donovan from Burn Notice, because I thought he had the right kind of medium build, nondescript look, because he's not, you know, 300-pound, you know. He looks like a blind lawyer who maybe swims or something. He's athletic-ish, but not, you know, a gym rat. So my thought, if I were casting it back in the day, I would have said Jeffrey Donovan. That's your Matt Murdock right there. And he comes pre-trained, because Jeffrey Donovan, if you know, he's got black belts that he didn't purchase at JCPenney. So he already comes like pre-trained, because Daredevil, you know, can throw down. Charlie Cox blew me away with how good he was. Really, really did. I've loved every season, and I'm so happy that Disney actually didn't recast, but went, you know what? Let's go ahead. D'Onofrio is amazing as Kingpin. Just the whole damn cast is so good. They're so spot on. John Barenthal. One of the first times I think they've really gotten Frank Castle right. I mean, Thomas Jane, there have been a couple that were good. They were good. He's great. He's perfect. But I watched the trailer, and then I watched it again, and I watched it again. And I am so jazzed. So excited. So I can hardly wait. I think March 4th, whatnot. Yeah, I'm enthused. Because oh, yes please. Yes, please. And let's be honest, he is a very good lawyer. Yes. And also, honestly, a shout out to Ben Affleck. I know it gets some hate, but the film version, especially the director's cut, he was decent. He was pretty good. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Because this isn't a spoiler. It's been out long enough to where if you haven't seen it, what the hell's wrong with you anyway? The guy who is currently in the Marvel Universe, Happy Hogan, is Foggy. He's kind of a big deal in the Marvel Universe. But yeah, it's not a recent love. He's been a Marvel kind of guy for a long time. He was a good Foggy, actually. He was pretty good. But I can't see him. I mean, I personally still see him go, Foggy happy, you know. But it's because I've watched the actual Daredevil movie, I don't know, 100 times maybe. Probably not 200, but, you know, a few times. I've seen it, you know, a bit. It's a lot of fun. And I gotta share this particular beef rant, what have you. I saw it in theaters. Okay. And playing. You ever see a movie where you understood and knew about the subject matter before, and you can tell some of the people around you have no clue what they're talking about? I know Pixie went through that with Lord of the Rings. Like, we saw Fellowship of the Rings. We saw all of them in theaters, but we saw Fellowship of the Rings. And we're walking out of the theater. And if you know where Fellowship ends, you know, right before Two Towers begins, you know. So we're walking out of the theater. And we've got a couple of, I don't know, 20-somethings walking out next to us, a couple of dudes. And dude one looks at dude two and says, man, can you believe it? set that up for a sequel already. So, in the sitcoms when, the one guy like, and, the other guy's holding him back, I thought I was going to have to do that with my redhead. Don't throttle the kid. Set it for a sequel. Hollywood, man. Get help, But I had a similar experience with Daredevil because, walking out of the theater, I don't think it was the same couple of guys, but I'm beginning to wonder if maybe it was. Maybe they're just like haunting us in that respect. I'm kidding. It wasn't. I remember it was a guy and a girl, because 20 somethings though. If you're 20 something, I know you're not all like this. It's not you. So I think he was just trying to be like cool and show off to his girl. But he looks at her and he's like, they completely made up that storyline. There's nothing like that anywhere in the comic books. And I had the hold me back moment. Because Pix was at least familiar with Daredevil. Just so that you understand us a little better. We actually have a comic book that is like our personal holy grail book, which is Giant Size X-Men #1. And the reason we've both been reading comic books since we were like, I think she might have gotten a head start on me. I started reading comics when I was like probably 7 or 8. But Giant Size X-Men #1 is kind of like the near and dear comic book for both of us, because she is and has always been a huge Storm fan, and I have always been a Nightcrawler fan. And comic book lore here for you. Some of you probably already know this. That book is both of their first appearances. It's also first appearance for Colossus. So if you're a Colossus fan and you're trying to get the key books, key book is like the important books in the life of a character or in a title or whatnot. If you're a Colossus fan, Nightcrawler, Storm, and it's a pricey book. It's not like a $2 book. That's their first appearance. So that's kind of a big deal. So, yeah, that's like, represent. That's the book. She doesn't necessarily know Daredevil. But I know we both heard that, and she kind of looked at me because I could tell by the look in her eyes, it didn't really sound right to her. It was kind of that, is that? And I'm like, it's based on a Miller storyline. I mean, it's very Daredevil. Did they change some things? Yeah. But that's really based on Frank Miller storyline. It's not made up for the movie. I mean, yeah. rather popular, famous run, actually. I don't remember the name of the storyline, the name of the run, but it was like from 1986 to 88 or something like that. Pretty long run. That's why it's not following the books perfectly, is it was a pretty long run, and it was a 2-hour movie. So some stuff was compressed, left out, altered. Hollywood's going to do that. But yeah, neither one of us killed neither one of them, so that worked out. Anyway, yeah, there's some more stuff in my family saga. I'll have to get into that on the next one, though, because holy cats, I'm at 40 minutes. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to keep them at like 20. Crit fail. Anywho, I'm going to sign off on this one. I'm going to go enjoy my coffee. It's perfect, by the way. I'll let you know what's going on as I figure it out. Yikes. Make it a great day.